Hi guys, so today I am bringing you a special batch review of entirely Penguin English Library books. I did read 5 of them in a row just because I was feeling a little bit like I had a lot to read from my Penguin English Library collection, and there were a lot of them that had been sitting there for a while that I really wanted to get through, so I pushed ahead and read 5 in a row. So let's get started with the reviews. So the first one that I read was Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. I really like this edition. It's got bees all over it, which reminds me a bit of my copy of, sorry, I'm just trying to look for it, but it's not readily available, of Tessa the Dubervilles by Thomas Hardy. I think it had like chickens on it, roosters. So they tend to have like naturalistic ones. For the Thomas Hardy cover. Basically, this tells the story of, and I'm gonna mispronounce this, Bathsheba Everdeen, which, fantastic name. Basically, throughout most of her life, from like a young woman to an older, more mature woman, it talks about her loves and their ultimate failures, but this is not as sad as Tess, thankfully, which is kind of nice that she does end up getting together with the man who she ultimately should have been all along. All of the plot lines are resolved, kind of in a almost Deus Ex Machina way. But I did really enjoy this. I think I gave this 4 stars. The reason I read this one first is because the movie is coming out. And I think it has Carey Mulligan in it, and I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, this was quite good. I would definitely recommend this over Tess, simply because Tess is super depressing, although I think majoritively Hardy's work is rather depressing from what I've heard. Probably my next one that I'm going to read is Under the Greenwood Tree, because that just came. So the next one that I read was also super depressing, The Mill and the Floss by George Eliot. It's been a while since I last read a George Eliot book. I have read Middlemarch and Silas Marner. Silas Marner is really short, Middlemarch is rather large. It is the pink one that is right behind me right there. And also, yes, this kind of yellowy orange one, second from the bottom of my drop cups. They're like on the same shelf. I have a couple of editions of them. This basically tells the story of Maggie and her brother Tom. It basically centers around their relationship, which is really interesting. I've read a biography on George Eliot. I think it's by Rebecca Mead, but it's called Life in Middlemarch, and it's rather fantastic. It's probably one of the better literary biographies that I've read. And I think I did a review of it at some point. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like I talked about it. But yeah, what interested me about this is that it seemed almost autobiographical, in that Marianne Evans, aka George Eliot, was distanced from her brother because she was in an extramarital affair for years, in which even, like, I forget his name, I'm gonna call him Mr. Eliot, because I think, no, Evans, Mr. Evans, there we go, I get it mixed up. Basically, like, his actual wife called her Mrs. Evans, and like, but her brother just thought it was, you know, not proper, and so they didn't talk, and it wasn't until after he had died and she had married a man much younger than her, which people were like horrified by, her brother accepted her because she had an acceptable marriage. And The Mill and the Floss is basically a redemptive tale between brother and sister. Ultimately, it ends in tragedy. This is a really freaking sad book, just as a heads up. Like, there is no hope. It is all bleak. The waters will rush in and you will drown. But I did really enjoy it. I found myself getting very frustrated with Maggie, just with her idolization of her brother and father. It frustrated me a little bit just because they weren't that great of a character and she was fantastic. So I much preferred her scenes where she wasn't interacting with them, which is not, actually it's most of the book, so you know, that's pretty good. Next up, Elizabeth Gaskell's Mary Barton. I read some reviews. I think Rike, I think it was your review that I was reading, and you mentioned that like this wasn't as polished as North and South, and you preferred North and South to this, and I think that would be generally the general consensus of most readers. I, however, would beg to disagree. I love Mary Barton as a protagonist. I thought she was fantastic. She was feisty. She did what needed to be done, and you know, she was just great. I really liked her as a protagonist, and I'm trying not to give away too much, but like, yeah, it's this, what I like about Mary Barton, as opposed to a lot of the other novels that I read, is that it deals with working class, northern English people during the Industrial Revolution. And normally, like, north and south, you deal with genteel society. These are people who work in the factories. And it is hard. And she does talk about babies, you know, and young children dying from starvation, and there's nothing their parents can do because there is no food for them. And it is slightly horrific, but this is a fantastic read. I would definitely recommend it, especially for people who are interested in like socioeconomic history. This would be a good read. North and South as well, but to a lesser extent, just because it does focus more on the romance. This does focus on the romance between Mary Barton and Jem, but that really doesn't come about until like the later part of the book. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. Next up, Villette by Charlotte Bronte. I've had this on my shelf for so long, and I did not enjoy Jane Eyre. I also didn't enjoy Wuthering Heights, but you guys know that already. I need to reread Jane Eyre, but I'm hesitant to do so just because it's long and I don't really feel like it. Oh my god, Villette is fantastic. Possibly an unpopular opinion. I was kind of like looking through Goodreads before I picked this up, and people generally gave it like 2 or 3 stars and didn't love it. Lucy Snow is probably one of my favorite protagonists of all time. She is manipulative. She hides things from the reader and is like, oh yeah, I totally knew this all along, but I'm just now cluing you in, which is a total mind trip, and it is fantastic. I also love how Charlotte Bronte, like, makes you think you're in a gothic story, but then there's totally a plausible and hilarious explanation for it at the end, which is fantastic. I'm trying not to give it away. Yeah, I really, really enjoy this. Probably, yeah, I can't say my favorite lines. It's at the very end. It shows you what a fantastically wonderful person Lucy Snow is. And by fantastically wonderful, I mean horrible. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. To my great surprise, I like devoured this in 2 days. It was just that good. Yeah, highly, highly recommend this. This is redeemed Charlotte Bronte slightly, not entirely, mostly because she was really mean to Anne, and Anne is my precious favorite Bronte of all time. But this does make it my second favorite Bronte novel. The first, of course, being The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, the third being Agnes Grey, and the final last 2 are Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. But yes, I would highly recommend this to the people who have been on the fence or have been, you know, messaging me, Claire, Stephen, read this. Read this. It is so good. Claire, I'm so jealous you get to study this. Yeah, if you like unreliable narrators and narrators who are like purposely unreliable, and she knows it, like that's the thing. It's fantastic. She knows she's being unreliable and she does it on purpose. And I actually love that about her. So the last 4 have been raves. This one, not so much. Henry James, Daisy Miller, and The Turn of the Screw. If you guys have been watching this channel for a while, you know I am not a big Henry James fan. The only other book I've read by him is The Lesson of the Master, which is misogynistic drivel. Don't read it. Daisy Miller, misogynistic drivel. Don't read it. I actually didn't finish it. I got like 20 pages to the end, and I was just like, I see where this is ending, and this is horrible, and I just Wikipedia'd what happened, and it confirmed my suspicions that Henry James is a dick. I am sorry to use such language, but he is a dick. The Turn of the Screw I actually had to read for class, which is the main reason why I read it despite my horrible experiences with The Lesson of the Master. That was a little bit less outwardly misogynistic. Sorry if the lighting's changing. It's like storming outside, so the natural light is kind of fluctuating. I just noticed on the monitor that it's changing a lot. Traditional Gothic story, governess, creepy castle, blah, 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 blah. Honestly, it was kind of boring. The only thing that interested me is the unreliableness of the governess as a narrator, and the framing of it was kind of interesting. That's about all I can say for it. Honestly, this probably got like 2 stars on Goodreads. But yeah, so that is a very exciting Penguin English Library Edition review. I'm really happy that I got like a big chunk of my Penguin English Libraries read. That was a lot. That was a lot of pages. That's like War and Peace length amount. It did take me about a month or so to do all that, but you know, I also just stopped reading for 2 weeks in the middle because grief. But yeah, so I will see you guys next week with another video. Leave in the comments below your favorite Penguin English Library editions. Let me know if there's any that you're like dying to get to that, you know, maybe we could do a read along or something like that. And I will see you guys later. Bye!